It should be no debate that the red pill community is a cult, and it's ruining our society because it's actually inspiring real life violence. The red pill community is one of the fastest growing online movements aimed at men. Millions of men have been exposed to it, with some subreddits reaching over 200,000 subscribers and countless forums and social media pages spreading its ideas. The movement promises truth and empowerment, but what it really delivers is manipulation, rigid thinking, and hostility toward women. New studies and expert analysis show that communities like this reinforce misogyny, promote antisocial behavior, and keep men trapped in immature and aggressive mindsets. These spaces often glorify lust and instant gratification, making it harder for men to form real relationships while pushing them toward rigid right-wing ideologies. We do not fully understand how coordinated some of this influence may be, or how much is driven by unseen forces, but the effects are clear. The ideology discourages critical thinking, isolates members, and creates cult-like loyalty. It is also bleeding into several other online and offline communities, including left-wing ones. Could the goal here be to create a more right-wing society that is easier to control by those in power? In this video, we'll break down how the red pill myth is created and why it spreads so quickly. You will learn the psychological and spiritual effects it has on men, women, and society as a whole. By the end, we explore practical steps to break free from this trap and develop healthier perspectives on gender, relationships, and personal growth. If you're a man, especially if you've ever been curious about red pill advice, this video will give you insights that actually help you grow and build authentic connections, unlike what those red pill gurus give you. If you're a woman, understanding what drives men toward these communities can give you clarity and help you navigate relationships more effectively. In other words, it can help you pick up more subtle red flags when you're interacting with men. The red pill presents itself as the ultimate truth for men. It promises liberation, self-improvement, and control over life and relationships. For young men who feel lost, disillusioned, or frustrated, it can seem like the answer they have been looking for. Part of the reason it appeals is that in today's society, it can actually be harder for some men to socialize with women. Technology dominates communication, cities often lack public spaces or easy transportation for casual social interaction. There's an increase of anxiety and depression, and rising fear among women has created a negative feedback loop. Frustrated men push boundaries, women become more guarded, and both sides retreat from further connection. Also, unlike previous generations, women today have more resources available to them to achieve higher education and more independence, raising their standard for what they want in a man. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, that should push men to become even better versions of themselves. But that reality is very different from what is promised by these red pill gurus. Instead of growth and empowerment to match the standards women are setting for themselves, many men find themselves trapped in bitterness, isolation, and rigid thinking. Online communities reinforce hostility, glorify instant gratification, and discourage real connection. The promise of transformation becomes a cycle of obsession, resentment, and dependence, keeping followers stuck in the same patterns they hoped to escape. The red pill community definitely shows cult-like behavior. One major pattern is the echo chamber effect. Dissent is punished while rigid dogma is celebrated. Another key trait is the idolization of certain leaders who are treated as untouchable voices of truth. Popular figures like Andrew Tate, Rollo Tomassi, and others are placed on pedestals, with their words treated as ultimate authority. This is reinforced by an us versus them mentality, where men are told they are the awakened, while women and so-called blue-pilled men are painted as enemies. Researchers like Robert Lifton in Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, and Margaret Singer in Cults in Our Midst, describe how these exact dynamics appear in groups that operate like cults. The problem is that this behavior does not actually help men succeed in relationships. Many are drawn into paying for courses and programs with the promise of future success with women. Instead of building confidence or meaningful connections, they are trapped in a cycle of spending money while expecting rewards that may never come. This keeps them dependent on the community rather than actually improving their lives. Analysis by the Southern Poverty Law Center characterizes parts of the manosphere as dogmas of male supremacy, rooted in misogynistic beliefs and sense of entitlement to women's time, bodies, and labor. Institute for Strategic Dialogue Research shows incel forums so often promote misogyny that they can even inspire real-world violence. Academic studies tracking millions of forum posts confirm that these groups have become more toxic and extremist over time. And research examining social engagement in these spaces demonstrates that even casual participation can shape users toward harsher, more hostile traits. In other words, instead of growing into mature, confident adults, participants are encouraged to remain stuck in defensive, immature, and angry mindsets, which is exactly the outcome that these groups claim to protect men from. But honestly, a lot of this behavior is nothing new. It's behavior that we need to evolve from. As our society advances and we become more conscious, women are becoming more independent, just as I mentioned earlier. And with education having less emphasis on social skills, and with our society becoming more technology based and causing people to be more isolated, these frustrated men's anger just builds up more and more, and they become addicted to venting, victimizing themselves, and they feel like they're being heard in these red pill communities. Upon my research, I would say that how stuck these men are goes even deeper than what these studies suggest. The red pill community creates a system that keeps men spiritually and psychologically stuck. Porn and social media algorithms promote lust and instant gratification. This conditions men to seek short-term pleasure over meaningful connection, shaping thought patterns and emotional responses. Red pill culture overlaps with the messaging of the porn industry and with right-wing online spaces. These channels reinforce a worldview where dominance, control, and resentment are normalized. Over time, men immersed in these spaces become antisocial, struggle to connect with women authentically, and experience growing frustration and bitterness. From a psychological perspective, this is a form of conditioning. Men are trained to adopt rigid beliefs about themselves and others, reducing their capacity for empathy and emotional intelligence. Spiritually, this keeps them trapped in reactive, survival-oriented behaviors, unable to reflect on their deeper purpose or relationships. In terms of spiral dynamics, something that we covered in a previous video, this culture locks men at the red stage, which focuses on power, domination, and tribal survival. This is one of the lower stages of spiral dynamics, meaning that it limits the way that they view the world. So it prevents growth to higher stages, where cooperation, empathy, and self-awareness become possible, keeping men stuck in cycles that limit both their personal and spiritual development. But ultimately, guess who benefits the most from this kind of system? It's corporations and those at the top of society's wealth hierarchy. When men are stuck in primal patterns of behavior and don't develop higher forms of thinking, they are limited in how they understand politics. They may notice certain truths, such as corruption within the Democratic Party, but without a broader perspective, they are drawn into echo chambers and rabbit holes that distort the full picture. This keeps them focused on distractions, wastes their time, and leads them to support the other side of the electoral duopoly, which continues to consolidate power and limit the influence of working class people. They don't realize that the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats, since they're both owned by the same people and end up doing their bidding anyway, at the expense of us. At their expense too, because these people in the red pill community, for the most part, are all working class people. There's no denying that the red pill rhetoric often overlaps with political extremism. The messages promoted in these communities emphasize dominance, control, and resentment. Over time, they condition men to adopt rigid and aggressive viewpoints, which align closely with certain right-wing ideologies. These narratives are often coordinated to push men towards specific political beliefs. Forums, social media groups, and influencers present simplified explanations of society that blame women, government, or other groups for personal frustrations. Men who are already angry, isolated, or socially disconnected are particularly susceptible to these messages. It doesn't help that some of these red pill talking points are repeated by some alternative news outlets, obviously right-wing ones, but now even ones that were once considered left-wing and are revealing to be more right-wing on social issues. This environment benefits the groups and systems promoting these narratives. Angry and alienated men are more likely to remain loyal to ideologies that reinforce their fears and biases. They are less likely to engage in constructive dialogue, develop empathy, or challenge the narratives they are exposed to. By keeping members isolated and resentful, these communities maintain control while also influencing political outcomes. The result is a feedback loop that strengthens both red pill culture and the right-wing movement that rely on these types of followers. Now, before we get into how one can break out of this mentality, we must understand what got them to adopt this self-harming mentality in the first place. The red pill appeals to men by targeting deep psychological vulnerabilities, insecurities about social rejection, feeling inadequate with women, or not being respected professionally or personally make men more drawn to its messages. Many carry unhealed emotional wounds and project their fears and frustrations onto women, reinforcing patterns of wounded masculinity. What men like this truly desire is meaningful connection. They want to be seen, understood, and loved deeply. The red pill creates the illusion of control, promising that following its rules will bring dominance, attraction, and success. In reality, it only deepens their isolation, resentment, and frustration. Instead of helping men build real intimacy, it keeps them trapped in cycles that block emotional growth, empathy, and authentic relationships. Breaking free from the red pill trap requires deliberate effort and self-reflection. There are 5 steps to this. The first step is developing self-awareness. This means making real changes in your life to become the best version of yourself. Focus on building healthier habits, going to the gym, seeking therapy, and deeply understanding your emotions and motivations. Set your mind on positive goals, rather than simply trying to get laid. The right women will come naturally once you have worked on yourself. If you do not work on yourself, you only attract people who are at the same wavelength as your current state. Awareness is the foundation for change because you cannot grow without seeing yourself clearly and taking meaningful action. Now, not only are these steps about finding the right person, but it's also about keeping them as well. And so the second step is building emotional intelligence. Learn to identify and understand your emotions. Practice expressing your feelings in healthy ways and actively listening to others. You want that connection. I know you do. Ask her deep questions about herself and about you. Make her feel important. Doing that doesn't mean you have to abandon self-respect. It also doesn't mean you have to disrespect her to get respect. Emotional intelligence allows you to navigate relationships more effectively and respond to challenges without falling into reactive patterns. It helps replace resentment and bitterness with empathy and understanding. The third step is cultivating real masculine strength. True strength is not about domination or control. It's about responsibility, wisdom, and compassion. It means being accountable for your actions, thinking critically, and treating others with respect. Real strength grows from self-mastery and integrity rather than seeking power over others or trying to manipulate outcomes. The fourth step is surrounding yourself with healthier communities. This means stepping out of your comfort zone. Seek out groups that encourage growth, self-improvement, and mutual support. Engage in conversations that challenge your assumptions constructively rather than reinforce isolation or anger. Positive social environments provide guidance, accountability, and examples of healthy masculine behavior. Exposure to new experiences and perspectives accelerates personal growth. Finally, at step number 5, commit to ongoing personal development. It should never stop. Growth is a continuous process. Explore higher stages of understanding. Develop your spiritual and psychological maturity and move beyond the limitations of the red pill mindset. Invest time in learning, self-reflection, and meaningful relationships. By taking these steps, men can break free from cycles of frustration, resentment, and isolation, and build fulfilling, authentic lives that align with both inner values and true connection with others. And you can learn more ways of growing and improving yourself by checking out this video right here.